is up, everybody? It is your boy Lou Martinez, aka Big Chief Burrito, randomly live with you on a Wednesday. Fireside chats with Big Chief Burrito, the 2 a.m. Burrito Halloween special. We were going to record a bit today for a Halloween show on the Mi Gente show. As you guys know, I've been splitting up the pod and the streams into two different shows, the 2M Burrito Fireside Chat show, as well as the Mi Gente podcast with Sophia, our host. And talk to the homie Florida man, Curt Griwan. He does all the intro music. He did the intro video that you just saw for us, and he's a big horror fan. So I definitely wanted to check in with him, see how things are out east in Gator Country. Talk a little horror movies, give us a little Florida man update. So I said, fuck it, we'll do it live. And so here's Florida man, Curt Griwan.
How's it going, man?
What's up, brother?
Oh, not much. Just still recovering from that hurricane. So,
yeah, that Scorpion show was kind of crazy, huh? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, the hurricane.
Yeah. You survived, man. I saw you were without power for like a week plus. There was gators and sharks coming into the fucking
in the yard.
Down the street, people were going crazy. It was definitely, and then there was like the people that just wouldn't leave, going out there with the American flag in their hands. And
oh yeah, that was old video footage. I remember seeing that before I even moved out here. I saw that video footage actually.
And then you had your homie DeSantis out there with the white boots.
I didn't see that.
You didn't see that. You didn't see him out there in the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader boots.
I didn't have internet or anything for a while, so I didn't see all that.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure they scrubbed it from all the Florida news channels. He was getting clowned on for walking around with some Dallas Cowboy type knee-high boots, while everybody had like regular ass shoes. All right, well, we're glad you made it. We're glad, especially that your cat made it. You were holed up in a shelter and stuff like that. So, first natural disaster for you. How did it go?
Nah, it was all right. I was working that day, and I live in Zone A, which is like one of the very first ones you have to evacuate here in Naples, and because we're pretty close to the water and stuff. And so anyway, when I got home that night from work, I saw the water accumulating, a lot of rain. It was just raining at that time, a little bit of wind, not much. And then I was like, well, you know what? I was more worried about my car than anything. So I grabbed my cat and, her and I just took off to like 20 minutes drive a little further uphill to the school and just kind of stayed there for actually 2 days because I couldn't go back into the house the first day because the water, I guess, flooded. It went all the way up to the house. I live on the second level, so I got lucky, but everyone below me was all pretty much drowned out from the water. So still to this day, it's been like a couple weeks now, we have like all the furniture and carpet thrown out in the front of the lawns from the people who live below me. So it smells like wet dog every time I walk out to the car. But when I got back, people or neighbors were like, so you're the smart one that left, huh? I'm like, yeah, because I guess they all their cars were flooded out and destroyed. So for the whole week, the towing company was having a field day, just taking everyone's car out.
Oh my God.
It was fun.
Yeah, be careful if you're buying a salvage title car in Florida or the East Coast for the next couple of years, because a lot of them are going to be cars that were flooded out, huh?
Yeah, that's how what they do. They ship them out to other states too.
Yeah, so make sure you always check. Why is this car salvaged? It was because it was in a hurricane.
Yeah,
it was underwater for 2 days. That's not good. That's not good. Maybe for like a Humvee or a Jeep.
Yeah,
they could sustain that, but not like a Celica. I don't even think they make Celicas anymore. So biggest difference between California and Florida?
The humidity and heat. It's horrible. I hate it here. I've only been here for a year, and I gotta tell you, I have not had one happy day. You know what? Florida has taught me a lot, though, about myself. Like, I am very, very hateful. I never used to be. I am the most hateful, angry person because I just cannot stand the people here. I've never done this before in my life, but for some reason, I wish death upon the elderly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just like everyone's so annoying here, and a lot of New Yorkers and a lot of Jersey people are right here right now. They could be saying the friendliest things in the world, the nicest things in the world, and I just don't like it here. Where I hear Jersey Shore,
Right.
and it just annoys me. It's me. It's not them. It's just totally me. I'm just an asshole. This place turned me into an asshole, basically.
Yeah, no, do you think that there's something in the water or something in the air that brings that out?
Of me or just them in general who live here?
People in general, do you think that there's something about it?
No, everyone here is pretty friendly. One thing I do like about here compared to San Diego or in California in general is to not I'm not going to get political, but you can out here you can basically be either side of the party and people just leave you alone. They don't question you or talk to you about anything. You could have a bumper sticker that says I'm with her or a MAGA bumper sticker, and people just don't care. In California, there's a lot of like you get your key, you can get your car keyed and shit like that. If you had the MAGA sticker,
Right.
people don't really care about the political stuff that much out here, and that's what I kind of dug about it. Get away from that at least.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't. You would think from our perspective that it would be kind of like the opposite. That well, maybe it's because there's so many. It's. I mean, it is a purple state, right? It always comes down to like a coin flip for Florida. So
Yeah,
you got
you,
to
you
make.
go you go to Miami, you're gonna get a lot of. It's gonna be a lot like L.A.
Mhm.
It's kind of like a melting pot there in a sense. Um, I should have known though. The place I picked, Naples, is. I should have known better when I went to the convenience store and I saw the greeting cards and it was a bunch of sympathy cards and no birthday cards. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm here with a bunch of old people and that's about it.
Have you
So
embraced the early bird special?
no, I have not. I don't like the food out here. They have no flavor. There's no flavor here. And I actually asked someone, I'm like, how come there's no flavor in the food? Mexican food, anything, any kind of food, there's no flavor. And they said because of the elderly and their diet restrictions, they can only have
Wow.
certain amounts of stuff. I'm like, oh, I get it. That makes sense,
I
But
mean,
I like a little flavor.
you are a boomer, but you went out there a little bit too early, I think, for you still got another couple of chapters in you before you hit that end stage boomer.
I
I
know.
think I think you jumped the gun a little bit.
Well, I just wanted to do something different,
Yeah,
do
you
something
proved this all
drastic.
you proved us all wrong. while proving us all right. Kurt, what the fuck
Yeah.
you gonna go do in Florida? Oh, my brother, and I'm gonna find a wife that's 75.
My brother
I mean,
wants me to. And my brother wants me to find a wife that's old because he thinks there's money and she can just take care of you because you're a young buck. I'm like, I'm not a young buck. I'm like, what? I'm 49. So, yeah.
yeah, there's a 75-year-old retiree with some money, man. That's like, I need to get me a nice 50-year-old young buck.
You know what's funny about that is last time I went to the doctors, my doctor was telling me I was sitting there. We were joking about the monkeypox a little bit, right?
Mhm.
And I go, you're probably not going to find that out here in Naples. A lot of the elderly and whatever. And then she's like, no,
Mm.
you'd be surprised. I'm like, what? She's like, I know they don't call this a sexually transmitted disease, but majority of people are getting it through sexually transmission. But
Old people
she
be
said,
fucking.
yeah, she said that the old people out here are getting tons of diseases, and there's like influx. They come out here and they just have nothing but they fuck. They
Yeah,
go crazy.
yeah, you got
I'm
nothing
like,
else to do with it, right?
ugh. Well, I hope when I'm older.
You're in
I guess,
Florida. You're in your 80s. It's fucking hot and muggy.
yeah, there's nothing to do but air conditioning stuff.
Go in the AC if you want to make it muggy. Go, man. Get you another 70-year-old and pop that blue pill and get after it, right?
Ugh. Blue pill. Oh yeah, yeah. I was, yeah, blue pill. That's what it was.
Like
I,
similar to these, Kurt. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah. Show me your prescription so I know. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, it could be a meal. Yeah, it could be heart medicine too. Um, so you're out there and you're still fucking with the music, obviously.
Yeah,
Big
about
ups,
all I can do.
yeah. Big ups to the for you for continuing to create at the drop of a hat music for the show. You sent me one message, and it was like, hey, I was like, we're doing a. I wasn't like asking for anything, and I was just like, we're doing a Halloween show. And then an hour later, I get a message. Hey, do you want me to do an intro song in the style of the Misfits? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And then like another hour later, you sent me this. How long does it take you to fucking do something like that these days?
Well, since that was punk rock, there's only 3 chords involved. It doesn't really take that much. I actually already had a song. I did a cover song of the Misfits, "Horror Business," the song "Horror Business," and that's actually going to be released tomorrow
Okay.
on Spotify and Apple. But then I did a
Under your
second
name
song.
or under Enslaved or which one?
I know it's actually under my name, and Kurt Grewon, and then I decided to do another song that's very similar to what I think the Misfits would have written and did. And so something I wrote, and I did that song. It is completely different from what the version I just sent you, but it still kind of has that whoa, that kind of thing. And I just changed the lyrics and I edited it down to 30 seconds or whatever for the clip. But so that song was already somewhat written, or pre-recorded before I gave it to you. I just did the lyrics differently, and that was really quick and easy.
Did you ever see when I think it was Vincent Price did Thriller live?
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for that earlier. I wanted to play that on the stream.
I used to love Vincent Price when I was a kid, man. Well, the first thing I've ever really heard him do was he was on the Alice Cooper song, and he did this whole thing about the tarantula and the spiders and stuff like that. Really cool story. I liked his voice, and I was a kid, and I was like, "What? Who is this?" My uncle told me who he was, so I started watching some of his movies,
did you
like The Pendulum, The Pit and the Pendulum. That was a really cool one.
Yeah, absolutely. When I mean, we obviously the I wanted to do a quick Florida man catch up with you, but wanted to. Okay, yeah, I want to ask you what's the most Florida man thing that you've seen with your own eyes out there? Like you seen anybody with like working washing machines on top of their pickups? Have you seen anybody like walking a pet alligator? What's the most Florida thing you've seen since you've been out?
Um, I've seen a lot of stuff on video. I follow this page called Only in Naples on Instagram, and they show a lot of stuff on video that I haven't personally seen in my own 2 eyes. But on the way to work, I have seen on the way to the airport a couple of guys on a pickup truck, which I don't normally see because it's against the law wherever I've lived. This has always been against the law where you can be in the back of a pickup truck on a freeway, sitting on lawn chairs, sipping margaritas and shit like that. And, and they're going to the airport, just hanging out. There's 2 people on the back of the truck, on the bed of the truck. They're going like 50, 60 miles per hour. Actually, the people out here drive crazy. I've never been around so many crazy accidents. I've seen so many crazy accidents since I've lived here. I don't trust anyone on the road. And I don't know if it's just because of the old people or what, but they just can't. I don't know what it is. They just don't drive very well out here. They will cut you off. They'll what they do is they'll drive and they'll like cut you off and make you go off the road. Because I've seen so many single car accidents flipped over upside down. I'm like, how's that happen? They always tell me at work, like, oh yeah, people cut them off. They clip them, and they do that on purpose. And they clip them and they go off on the side of the road upside down.
They're doing they're doing.
Yeah, you froze. I don't know what happened to him, but I guess I lost him. That's a good face, though. Yeah, he's making a good face as he's froze. Is he coming back?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. You're not moving, but I can hear you.
All right, I think we froze for a couple.
Now you're moving. Now you're moving.
I think we're good to go now.
Nice.
Sorry about that. All right, cool. So I want to play this clip because this is one of my favorite Halloween clips. Let's play.
Friday the 13th.
And it's full moon.
Yeah.
And to have you sitting here and not do your part on Thriller would be a sin, which you've never done on television.
Never done it.
No, I know. I beg you.
Joan.
All right, I will.
All right.
You remember Joan Rivers?
Oh yeah.
Hopefully we don't get takedown because of the music.
The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down, to stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell. The foul stench is in the air, the funk of 40,000 years. And grizzled ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver. For no mere mortal can resist the evil of the thriller.
What a legend.
That guy always amazed me. He was just like perfect for a lot of certain roles. But when I watch him, when I see him, I can't help but think of Edward Scissorhands. Because that's like one of the very last movies that I've seen him in.
Yeah. I forget the director's name right now. Tim Burton. He has had a couple of memorable roles with older people. I guess you can, Jonathan Landau in Ed Wood as Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
So kind of like on par for him. It was kind of cool. So since it's Halloween themed, I wanted to touch base with you on, because you're a big horror fan. You've made horror movies yourself. So where do you think it started for you? What was like? What do you remember? Like the first kind of instance of a movie or a song, something that was spooky, that scared you, and that sort of made you kind of start seeding that love for horror films and stuff like that. Was it always there, or was your parents, older people? What was going on?
I think it was always there. I just remember my grandmother on my mother's side. She had I guess it was a cassette, and it was one of those audio cassettes that would like the old radio show days. You sit in front of the radio and they would tell a story, and you just listen and use your imagination. And it was I think it was it was the House of Dracula or something like that, and it was like had Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster and
with like chains and wind and rattling stuff like that.
Yeah, and all that stuff. And I was just so like into listening to that because I didn't really hear that kind of stuff when I was with my parents. It was just when she would babysit. So she would expose me to these really cool old horror stuff a little bit. And then kind of went from there. And when I was young, I remember my mother was going to work and I was sick and I couldn't go to school. I was just at that brisk of like, could you babysit yourself and not worry about a babysitter, or should he get a babysitter? I was pretty young at that time. And she's like, you know what? I don't have time to get a babysitter. You're going to have to watch yourself. And I'm all right. And she's like, let's get a couple movies for you to spend so she knows I'm safe and just watching movies. So I wanted to get a horror film, and she's like, okay, but if you get one horror film, you got to get a family movie. All right, no problem. I remember I got the original Hellraiser.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, original Hellraiser. And she said, pick a Disney movie. So I got the Black Hole. And so I watched, that was kind of a double feature because the Black Hole science fiction. So yeah, I watched the Hellraisers, and I never
like a Blockbuster, or like a video store, right?
Yeah, Blockbuster. Well, it wasn't quite Blockbuster. It was like I don't think they had Blockbusters in my hometown of Michigan. It was like a family-owned type thing.
Right, one of the video store.
Yeah, and I remember always wanting horror films. Horror films, that's all I ever wanted. And I used to buy the Fangora magazines and read about how they do the gore, like Tom Savini and all those gore guy, all those really cool special makeup effects artists. And so when I'd watch the films, I would see all the gore that previously read about, and I was like, okay, yeah. So I guess it didn't gross me out or scare me because I already knew in advance what it was and how they did that and all stuff like that. So I always thought it was interesting or cool. So that's kind of how I got into that. And then of course, the music aspect, of course, as well.
Right.
Yeah.
You were riffing a little bit. You got your piano in front of you? Or what
What's
were
that?
you were riffing a little bit before. Did you have your piano in front of you? You were playing the.
Oh, yeah. I was fucking around doing the Halloween theme song. Like, let's see.
Ooh.
Something like that. I was goof around.
Takes you back. Takes you back.
Yeah.
Okay, so you all right, so grandma's at fault for the scary Halloween cassettes.
Well, she was an Elvis fan, so that's why they got the Elvis cup here and horror film. She introduced me to as well.
How'd you like the Elvis movie?
You already know how I felt about it. I'm not a huge Baz fan. That's how you say his name?
He went full Baz. He went full Baz, man.
The storyline was okay. I'm glad they showed where the music came from and how he was influenced. I was kind of worried, like, okay, are they going to even mention black culture and black music, all that kind of stuff like that?
Right.
Yeah, and I'm glad they went to that, and because I was always into like the blues with Robert Johnson and the story of him selling his soul to the devil and all that kind of stuff like that, and that's where pretty much rock and roll was born, and all that kind of stuff. Blues actually, that's funny. I heard a story, and I'm not certain if I don't know if it's 100% true, but back in the whole like slave days, they used to have drums, and the slaves would play drums, and they would talk to each other on different plantations by the drum beats, and they would make certain rhythms, and eventually the evil white man knew what what was going on, so they took the drums away and they gave him the guitars instead, and so that's where that whole like dun, 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 that percussive rhythm came from, was the whole the drum thing, and then they would basically tell stories and sing songs that way, and they reinvented music theory at that time, how it was supposed to be. And they just basically invented blues. Probably the greatest musical invention in American history was the blues and jazz, which is all contributed to the black community, African American.
Yeah, and then Elvis spends a little time in the hood, and all of a sudden he's rocking out, right?
Yeah, well, he got a lot of shit. Thinking, for some reason there's always been this whole thing of he stole the music and all that stuff like that. No, that's the music he loved and grew up with, and he grew up in that kind of neighborhood, so that was what he was absorbing.
So you're saying you're an Elvis apologist? I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to go to that Bill Burr thing where him and his wife were watching this documentary about Elvis, and they're arguing about it.
Oh yeah. Mia was on right? Mia?
That's
his wife name? Yeah, I like it when she comes on the show.
Yeah, she's great.
Okay, cool. So we talked Elvis, we talked making Misfits type music, and then you started with your love of horror movies early. What have been the sort of, because we're talking Halloween-y, we're talking like, favorite movie franchises. I saw a question that we had for this week from one of the Nama's Way segment for the other show where, and I just took a sneak peek, but one of the questions somebody submitted, and we're going to ask it on the show, is what is the most overrated horror franchise? In your opinion, what do you think that would be? Or is there a horror movie that people just go nuts over, or that you're just like, it's mid?
Well, franchise-wise, I know, like, a part of me is thinking Saw. I like
once it got past like Saw 3 or 4.
Yeah, and it ultimately became more of a game show than a horror film, and it was just like, okay, what can we do that's disgusting and gross instead of storyline? And they threw everything out the window. But the first one was amazing. I did remember.
Yeah, first Saw was incredible.
Yeah. And it was much like, I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Cube. I thought that was really
Yes.
cool as well.
Mm.
But yeah, I was gonna say the Saw, but another part of me wants to say Friday the 13th.
Oof.
I know there's probably a lot of fans, but I've never been a huge Friday the 13th fan. I enjoyed watching the movies, but I've never been just a typical campfire slashing, all the teens that were having sex movie.
Hmm.
And I guess it made me feel bad because when I was a teen, I never had sex, and I never,
What
yeah.
about the horror master Hitchcock?
Hitchcock was always good. I A lot of people disagree with me, and I'm sure you do too. But I didn't mind. I didn't mind Gus Van Sant's remake of the Psycho movie.
Really? I felt like it. I felt like it felt like a film school exercise rather than a unique take on it. Because
I think that's what he described it as himself. He was curious if he could do shot for shot, scene for scene, and still create the same kind of feeling people got back in the original day.
yeah, because it was like I mean Anne Heche, R.I.P.
Yeah,
Not Affleck. It was Vince Vaughn,
yeah.
right?
I thought he did a good job. People didn't like it, but I thought he did a good job.
He did an excellent job in remaking it shot for shot. I mean, there's 37 different angles in that shower scene, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. And so to recreate that shit for the edit, I just think it's really strange that it's like shot for shot, like it's the exact same thing. It's just very weird to me.
It was, but in my perspective, I took a friend I worked with, a coworker, and she never seen the original. She had no idea the original even existed until that movie came out, and she was like, "There's an original. That's a remake." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, she was curious to seeing it, so I went to see it with her. So sitting next to her, I felt her energy and her whole vibe, and she was frightened and she was like grossed out and scared. And I think that kind of made me feel like this is probably what it was from the original aspect of if I was in the theater watching the original movie back in the day.
Yeah, that is kind of that is awesome. I do enjoy. It is cool when you know that there's a banger of a movie that you have, or like a real cool plot twist or something, and you know it and you don't know, and you get to like expose somebody to it. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I could see that being a good thing. Okay, so Friday thing Spence said, did you just because you mentioned the Cube, did you ever see, I think it was a Netflix movie a couple years ago, it was a European movie called like The Platform or something like that?
No.
It's more like psychological thriller that's like about this building that has like 100 floors, right? And every day it's this giant platform, and they put a bunch of food and bread and drink and wine and everything, like just fill it up with just baller ass bunches of food. And it's like a jail where there's two people on each floor, and the platform goes down each level, and it only comes down to your level for like 15 minutes or something like that, or like a couple of minutes, so you have to eat, and then it goes down the next level. So the people below you only get to eat the stuff that's leftovers.
Oh, so it's kind of like a whole thing about socialism, or you froze up again. I was making a joke and you froze up. Ruined my whole punchline. There you
But
are.
we should be good to go. Are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm writing the timestamp so I can eliminate those parts where we bugged out.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you're at the top floor, you get the choice, right? Because you're at floor number 1, you get the pick of everything. But if you get down to like floor 60, 70, 80, you're getting just like scraps and leftovers and like stuff that's that. So it's like this whole psychological experience where the people in the bottom are trying to get everybody to just, hey, just eat a little bit, save some for us. And the people at the top are like, fuck you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some shit like that. And
That
then
sounds cool. Good
and then
storyline.
every week you wake up and you're on a different floor. They move you around and stuff like that. It's an interesting, pretty interesting platform.
I've actually felt that before on nights that I've drank. So, yeah, I didn't know where I was when I woke up.
Don't know where I was. So horror. If we're staying on the horror tip for a little bit, obviously. So what is your favorite subgenre? Because I mean, there's the classic horror, there's monster horror from the original, like Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, etc.
I've always been a fan of the Universal horror films, the old school horror films. and I used to have posters in my room of Todd Downing's, Dracula and Frankenstein and whatnot. But I would say if I was to really want to watch a horror film and be like try to be scared would be psychological. I always thought psychological or supernatural. I'm a really big fan of the Conjuring films, minus the Annabelle. I didn't really care for the Annabelle movies. But the Conjurings were actually pretty good, and I remember seeing it. I remember seeing part 2 in the theater with Cassandra, which you're familiar with her, and her and I went to go see it, and she brought some rum, I believe, and Cassandra. So she was filling up my Coke that I bought at the theater with rum, and I was drinking it, and we're watching the movie, and yeah, it gave me anxiety and a really eerie feeling. And what I learned was the film score guy, which I can't remember his name right now, but there's a study that was shown there's a certain note, a really deep bass note that the human ear really don't pick up, but it can feel it a little bit because they have the surround sound in the speakers in the theater, so it's deeper. And he would play this like B flat note or whatever it was, like really low, where you don't really hear it too much. You just feel it, and I guess that certain note gives people anxiety a lot of times. And they were doing that throughout the entire movie, which I thought was interesting and a really cool choice to give people a feeling. So I was kind of felt manipulated by the film, even though it's the scene itself might have not been scary. Like if you play that movie, then you play circus music, it's not going to have the same effect. You're going to hear a big top Pee Wee over The Conjuring. But I thought the movie was cool. I haven't seen part 3. I just realized there was a part 3 of The Conjuring, which I have not seen yet.
Yeah, they did a bunch of them, right? They did like multiple timelines, and then you can watch them in order, or you can watch them in the order that they were released, et cetera, et cetera.
Not a fan of the Nun. I didn't care for either. But
how do you feel about like found footage stuff like that?
I thought I was gonna dig it when, like, I know the Blair Witch came out, and we all went to see it in the theater. It was enjoyable, but it wasn't because the film was enjoyable. It was because the audience participation was the part that made you excited. But if you just watch it by yourself on video, you're like, this is fucking boring. This is stupid as shit. And I know, what did it come from? Like, was it Cannibal Holocaust? Kind of like that kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess Cannibal Holocaust was the first one. I mean, and we talked about this a little bit on the last, because I talked Ian Tripp. He did a movie called Everyone Dies by the End. He recently did that was found footage. It was really good. And then we spoke about horror films with Natalie a couple of weeks ago on the show, and yeah, I think that was the beginning, because they actually had to bring people in to prove that they were still alive, and
they couldn't find them.
Yeah, and they killed a bunch. They killed a bunch of animals, and so I think the fact that you were seeing such gruesome animal deaths, and then you saw this body impaled, and I think that was kind of like the thing. But that's happened with like Japanese movie. I think what is that? Something of the flower thing that they did, where I think it was it Charlie Sheen or Charlie Sheen? I think saw this movie in Japan, and then he like called the FBI, and they thought it was a snuff film, and they tried to get involved with like some stuff like that. So I think that's definitely a subgenre of like shock, awe, Blair Witch, even the Green Inferno, the reimagination, the Eli Roth version kind of Cannibal Holocaust. Did you catch that one? How'd you feel?
Yeah, I did. I actually own that on VHS. If you remember VHS, you remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do. I remember Betamax.
I think I gave you tons of my old VHSs before I moved, actually.
No, DVDs. You gave me like 2 boxes of DVDs that I still have.
I mean, I'm talking about big boxes. Yeah, hundreds of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've
been selling them at the swap meet every weekend.
Nice. You know what? Send me that money when I move back. I can use that money for gas. I know. I always liked Eli Roth. I thought he was great. I think he's really knowledgeable on horror films, and I liked his movies he's done, produced, and even directed. I haven't seen him do too many stuff lately, though.
I mean, Hostel, the original Hostel was really good.
Yeah.
and even a couple of the sequels had some
Like
good
Cabin
moments.
Fever, did he do that?
Kevin Femer, he also did Knock Knock with Anna de Armas, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I love that meme too with the phone and his um,
It's
me.
free pizza.
Yeah,
It was
that
free
movie.
pizza.
That movie can make you frustrated. It really makes
Yeah.
frustrated. God damn, it's actually pretty funny. I like that one, and I like what else do you do? Inferno, right?
Oh yeah, Hostel and
Yeah,
Inferno, Knock Knock, and then I think he did some of the sequels and stuff. I don't know what else he was doing,
yeah.
but he's been all over the place. So found footage,
Not a
gruesome
huge fan.
stuff. No, I mean, yeah. And then recently, there is the slasher, and we actually have tomorrow night Joe Castro, who holds the record in one of his films for the biggest body count of a slasher movie. I think it was like 151 bodies or something like that. He's
Yeah,
been
I want to
doing,
see that.
yeah, he's
I
been
guess.
doing, yeah, and then Killer Tunes, or I don't know what his franchise in, but if you look up Joe Castro on IMDb, you can see he's made 19 movies, tons of them, and he actually has a group on Facebook for indie filmmakers that where they talk about certain unscrupulous distribution networks. So there's a place where if you have a film, and we'll talk about this tomorrow on the show, where they actually like share contract information. They're like, hey, this person is offering to distribute my movie, where they'll fake numbers and they'll basically fake cost and tell you that you're fucked and that your movie didn't make any money. And obviously we're advocates for indie filmmakers, obviously, since that's what we are. But the subgenre, all right, there's, like you said, there's the camp thriller, there's the kids have sex and die, there's the psychological thrillers, there's the supernatural thrillers, found footage, haunted houses, stuff like that. And then there's the ultra gory like slasher flicks, like torture porn. I guess Saw falls under this, but more recently the most
Terror.
vocal Terrifier.
Yeah.
Terrifier 2 came out. I saw it. They were advertising it as somebody threw up next to me in the theater. My date passed out, and I still watched the rest of the movie. So they're really going for shock. But then you could say the same thing about a movie like, Silo 120 Days, from back in the day, that sort of had that sort of shock you. But the difference with Silo is that it was supposed to be an analogy it was just supposed to be about fascism, and some of these films, like even Serbian movie, is supposed to be about politics in Bosnia, and it's supposed to be about sort of the war culture there, and all these things where the filmmakers are like, yeah, we're showing you horrible fucking shit, but it is kind of about how our people have been treated and all this other stuff. And yeah, I get it, but at the end of the day, you're just really just showing us just a bunch of gross shit. So how did you feel about Terrifier? How do you feel about those types of films in general?
I actually like them.
You think it's
I
like a
saw
cathartic thing, or what do you think
no,
is
I
the
saw
process for
the
that?
first one, and honestly, I just watch it for entertainment value, even though it really has no value whatsoever.
Right.
I didn't see the part two though. My friend who works at a horror film convention in Texas, he knows the guy, the clown. He knows him and works with him, and he's pretty close with him, and they joke around a lot and stuff. And he says a really real nice guy, real cool guy. So, but he said that's actually a pretty good movie. He liked it, and I think maybe he only likes it because he knows the guy. You know how that is. Like, oh, their band is awesome, and you listen to that band, it really actually sucks, but you realize they only like the band because they're friends with them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't seen part two. I thought the first one was cool. It was fun. Honestly, I did a back to back. I did that one along with the next movie I saw was the Killer Pinata. I don't know if you ever seen that.
No.
It's hilarious. It's
Put it
fucking
on the
funny.
list, though. That sounds awesome.
Pinata goes around and kills people. Especially since he witnesses other people killing other pinatas. So it's a great movie. It's hilarious, and it makes you laugh. So
say no more.
Yeah, and so I watched those two back to back. So I had appreciation for the first one. I just never seen the second one yet. I heard stories about it. And it did kind of remind me of 128 Days. You know how people were throwing up in the theater when he was cutting off his hand or whatever. I went to see that in the theater and in Hillcrest actually back in San Diego, and it didn't bother me that much. It was kind of gross. I think the only thing that made me like ew was the screeching noise that
Yeah, sometimes it's the sound.
the sound made it gross, not the actual visual. So so I don't think I'll be affected by part two, like you're saying how they advertised it. But that's great advertising. That is like genius level advertising because there's going to be people out there who's like, I don't know what that's about, but I gotta see it.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
just think it's a curious way to advertise a horror movie. I honestly, they're going in for the shock value, and it's almost like this movie is too horrible for you to watch.
It's
You
kind of
know?
like how Marilyn Manson became famous. He's horrible, he's satanic, and everyone's protesting. The more protests he gets, the more people want to listen to his music and see who he is and what's going on.
Hey, he's best friends with Johnny Depp. He's grooming people. He's doing all kinds of crazy shit. People still love him.
Yeah.
I watched the first Terrifier probably about a week ago because I downloaded the second one and I was like, I'm gonna watch this, check it out. And the thing with me and horror movies is that I had and I grew up a lot with like Ogrish and like all these websites and like videos, underground videos of like I never watched like the jihadi like decapitation videos because I didn't know, but I've seen like so many like actual like narco videos where they like chop people's arms off and dismember people and shit like that. And unfortunately in real life I've seen so much real shit that it feels like that I don't really get the shock of it. I'm like, okay, they're gonna skin this chick alive, or they're gonna chop this guy, they're gonna blow this guy's heads off, or they're gonna do something like that. So I think I have a weird relationship with the violence where I don't flinch, and I'm just like, okay, because I think once you've seen what's possible in real life, it's very hard for like a fictional movie unless you can really get into and believe it's actually happening, or like, you know what I mean? Because I always think like found footage is only scary if your friend shows up and it's 1992 and he's like, dude, you got to watch this movie, and you've never heard anything about it, and he just pops it into the TV. That is the setting for found footage. It's not a marketing campaign and a poster and you know what I'm saying? So I think when you promote something like that, it can't be that real, but when done correctly, it's a lot of fun. So I saw the first Terrifier. I thought it was pretty good. I understand it. I understand why people enjoy it. It's a clown that doesn't make any noise, that may or may not be supernatural. And it's got a lot of cool kills. It's a New York movie, which I like, but Killer Clown's been done to death, but they sort of do a cool little twist on it. The second one is just more of the same. It just picks up right when the last one left off, and it's just more of the same. There's some cool bits, without spoiling it for people. He gives out Halloween candy, but the Halloween candy is in somebody's actual head that he cut off, and so the kids are seeing it like, oh, it's cool. And I was laughing at that. I was like, it was kind of cool. So I understand the fascination with it.
What you think of Trick or Treat with Sam? I thought that was kind of a fun little movie.
Which one?
Trick or Treat, the little boy.
I haven't watched it yet. I haven't seen it.
I thought it was pretty funny. It was good.
Yeah.
It was actually decent. It made me laugh, and it had some good moments. They did it all Tarantino style, where they had like 5 different stories that tie into one at the end, type of thing like that. But it was actually pretty funny, and the kid Sam I thought was adorable. The guy, the main character, the little pumpkin thing. But I think the name Sam came from Samhain, which they mentioned in the film. Actually, they pronounce it differently than Samhain. Yeah. So the whole Halloween theme going on. I thought that was pretty good. The only honestly, the 2 brand new ones that I've seen since I've had power out and all that kind of stuff like that. I had to download movies before the power went out was the new Halloween Ends.
We're into that.
The David Gordon Green movie. Didn't he do Pineapple Express?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, he was doing the new Halloween films, which I liked the first one they did. I thought was great, where Laurie pretty much has all these booby traps and all that kind of shit like that in the house, and they really beat him up pretty good in that movie. Halloween Kills disappointed me, especially since half the running time was a bunch of townspeople saying "Evil dies tonight." That was all it was. It was all they were repeating the whole time. I thought that was annoying. And then they even made it worse. The Halloween Ends, I thought, was even worse. I know some people liked it, but I didn't really care for it because I don't think Michael Myers, the actual Michael Myers, was in the movie for the first 45 minutes. It was kind of boring. I thought it was kind of shitty. It was a horrible way to end.
The issue that I have with these movies is that I think that, like, if you ask me about like Godfather 1 and 2, like, hey, does this happen in 1 or does this happen in 2? I can tell you everything. Or if you tell me about some 80s movies or action movies or stuff like that, comedies, you can tell me this, I'm wearing the Mallrats shirt, like Brian, if I tell him any line in Mallrats, he can recite the movie from that point forward. Like, we're more geeks about that.
Yeah.
And I love terror and I love horror, but I do feel that it's like the genre that I'm sort of least knowledgeable in terms of like memory. So for some reason, like Sophia asked Natalie on the last podcast, she's like, rate the Scream movies. And I remember probably number 1 is the best, but I don't remember and I've seen every Scream movie, I've seen every Halloween movie, I've seen every Friday the 13th movie, but I don't remember, them that well that I can point to like which one of them is my favorite or how I would rank them. It's weird, as I could with other movies. So that's kind of where horror suffers with me, is that I don't have the encyclopedic knowledge, and I don't have for some reason my brain hasn't retained specifically that I enjoyed, Halloween 3, but I didn't enjoy like H2O, or like the Chainsaw Massacres. Like, I couldn't do that,
I can't.
I know.
I always been a fan of Michael Myers, but despite the Michael Myers fandom, I actually loved Halloween 3, which did not have or feature Michael Myers at all. I thought that was a great movie. It was so silly and ridiculous that I thought it was fun. I loved the movie, the soundtrack, and the silly song they played in the commercial. I thought that was cool. And the original idea of the Halloween with John Carpenter was not to be specifically about Michael Myers. He wanted to do a series of Halloween films. With each Halloween film was going to be a different story taking place in Halloween. But the success of Michael Myers, they forced him to do part 2. And he didn't really want to do it, but he did it, and he just did it. Just
the Ewok effect.
Yeah. So he did that, and then he did 3, and that wasn't a success at all. So they started doing all the other ones. What I noticed about the new trilogy that came out, that David Gordon or David Green or whatever his name is did, is the first one came out, right? And the opening sequence, how they have that pumpkin with the the title and all that kind of stuff like that, and the music playing. That one was like it was a reverse rotting of the pumpkin. So it was like, to me, I was like, okay, he's saying it's a rebirth, which is kind of funny and simple at the same time. But when Halloween Kills came out, it was like the pumpkin was a blaze of fire, and at the end, I think the pumpkins was doing like changing faces all the time, which kind of I thought indicated that that Michael Myers, they'll probably have Michael Myers changing people. It won't be actual Michael Myers. It'll just be an evil within of everybody. Mm-hmm. Then when Halloween Ends came out, it was like what I liked about it, they did the blue font, which was usually it's orange, but this one was blue, which I thought was a throwback to Halloween 3, which had the blue font as well. Mm-hmm. So I thought he did that was kind of cool. And Halloween Ends, the pumpkin was changing faces, I believe, as well. So it was indicating the whole storyline of how Michael Myers is not going to be the only last and only Michael Myers in the mask. It's going to have different people
Yeah, well, I
portraying
guess
him.
they could go with the whole multiverse thing, right? This is a
Yeah,
Michael Myers for this universe. There's a Michael Myers in this universe, et cetera, et cetera. If they want to,
yeah,
that's kind of like that's like the easy button nowadays. It's like there's no continuity. Multiverse.
yeah. And I think the new ones, I think that's like, especially Michael or Halloween Ends. I think it's going to be like the Last Jedi for people. It's going to be just piss people off because it didn't quite correspond with what their idea of what Michael Myers was and who he was and stuff. So yeah, I didn't like it. I was kind of pissed off when I watched it. I didn't care for it. And you froze up again. We'll get you back.
Hey, there we go.
There we are.
Sorry about that. Were you vamping?
Yeah, I don't know what was going. I don't know if I'm live still, so I just kind of played piano.
No, that's perfect. Sorry about that. I'm having some internet issues, I guess, over here, and you're the one in
Really,
Florida.
because in Florida, I thought I would have more internet issues.
No, I don't know. I think maybe it's just usage at my house. I was also trying to like watch a basketball game while we were talking, so maybe that was what's
I'm
happening.
glad I'm interested. I'm glad I'm being really interesting to you.
I had it on with no sound, Kurt.
All right.
No. Cool, man. Well, I wanted to, yeah. So, yeah, wrapping up the Halloween talk. Obviously, like I said, I want at some point I do want to go back and sort of watch them in order or watch them.
Good
It's kind
luck.
of like the thing that I do, like when even if it's movies that I watched again, I'm like, or I'll go through somebody's filmography and do shit like that, where I'll try to watch things. But I do feel that and even our horror movie, like I do want to branch out into horror more and stuff like that. So I definitely will be exploring that area more. And we've even talked about doing some sort of horror related scenes based on some of your music. I had a couple more questions and then I'll let you go. Because for me, like, I love the slasher stuff, but like, if I can remember, like the times that I've been more scared or suspenseful, is more like supernatural thriller or
Yeah.
stuff that's closer to real life. Like what was that movie with Angelina Jolie? I think was the detectives called like Changing Lives or something. It was like the serial killer that would kill somebody, but then would like take over their life for them. Like
I haven't really watched too many Angela Jolie
I think
movies,
it was.
so
I don't know if it was her or somebody else. And then there was that other breathe. It was the movie where like the entity would just pass from one person to the other in the air with Denzel Washington. It
I
was
forgot
like
the title of that.
it was
Yeah.
like breath or breathe or something, right? And that kind of shit is real scary to me. And the scariest and the most scared, and I don't know the name of this movie, and I don't want to know the name of this movie. Um, the most scared I've ever been watching a movie is I was watching a movie in the '80s. I remember, and it was about these dudes that were like escaping from jail, or it was like a gang of outlaws, and they were escaping, and they were like in Mexico or like in the Southwest, like old timey, like a Western style. And the way they were escaping is they were going to walk through the parade, and most of them were going to be dressed as like monks. And the main bad guy that everybody recognized was going to be in a coffin, and they were going to walk him through town like if it was a funeral procession. But at the end of the movie, spoiler alert for those that haven't seen this random 80s movies that I don't remember the name of, for some reason at the end they betrayed him and they buried him alive. And so they never took him out of the coffin. They're like, fuck this guy. And they put him in the ground and they buried him, and they just left him there. And that movie has like stuck with me for my entire life since I was like 7-8 years old when I watched it.
That's cool.
So I think so for some reason, so those types of things more that fall more in line with reality, I think is what is the stuff that really gives me that sort of horror feeling. The rest of it as a filmmaker, I think it's more like visceral, more like it's like a fun watch, popcorn watch. Oh, okay, look how they're gonna, like, it never makes me go like, it's more like, oh, look, he's really going extra when that clown is like laughing. He's like, yeah, look what I'm doing to you. I'm sort of a murderess. And that's the only part I don't like about Terrifier, which is funny, but it's just like he's chopping somebody up. He's like pouring acid on their face. He's like just torturing them, and they're still alive. And he's like, yep, look what I just did to your daughter. Look at me. I'm just a rascally old murder clown. Whoops. And
Well, one of my all-time favorite, I guess, what you're saying how psychological films or ghost stories is kind of like the Changeling style. One of my all-time favorites was with George C. Scott, The Changeling. I always watch that. I think that's a great movie. I don't know if you ever seen it. Yeah, The Changeling is great. It's a ghost story, especially when it comes to a kid. You got a ghost that's a child. It's always creepy. So I always thought The Changeling was good. And you can't forget about the great Silver Bullet with a werewolf. That was great.
so I guess the reason I was asking you that is could you pinpoint the most scared you've ever been during a horror movie? Would that be it, or do you think there's like a more
Um,
specific part that actually made
no.
you scared? Not that you liked or you thought was like this is badass. For like example, like the Thriller video used to scare the shit out of me,
Okay.
but I was like really young and stuff, and I was just like, I was still kind of like a pussy and stuff. So I was like, it would scare me the end where he looks back in his eye, that stuff with that.
I
But
guess there's a part of me that wants to say Wild Wild West with the giant spider,
that was scary.
mechanic spider. Great film. The other thing I thought of, I guess, the original Poltergeist. I guess the part where I remember we were in the drive-in movie theater, and it was a double feature. It was Poltergeist, and then after Poltergeist was going to be a bunch of whatever. What do you call those movies? Godzilla films, and I really wanted to see the Godzilla films when I was a kid. So I was trying to stay up, but the part where the guy's taking his face and tearing it off, ripping his face apart, over the sink, that grossed me out as a kid. And I guess when I was a kid, I was in the back seat of the car saying like, well, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. And I put my head down. And, I remember my dad laughing at me. Then they told me it was over, and I popped back up to watch the rest of the movie. But that movie kind of creeped me out. Poltergeist, the original. And I unfortunately, I fell asleep because I was so goddamn young. I never watched any of the Godzilla films. So bummer for me.
Bummer indeed. And then finally, I wanted to give you a chance to tell us how much you love the latest Rob Zombie movie. Before I did that, I wanted to remind everybody that we are live, but this will be the 2 a.m. Burrito Fireside Chats Halloween Florida Man check-in with Curt. And Curt is a musician, filmmaker from... He used to live out here, but then he moved to Naples for some fucking reason. And you can watch him and listen to his stuff on Spotify by looking up his name, Curt Griwan. And if you look far enough through his filmography, you will find different stuff that he has done for us and different songs that I have used from his filmography for our movies, as well as all the stuff that he's done specifically for 2 a.m. Burrito for my podcast. Like I said, it's literally, hey, I need a ska song, or I need this, or I need something upbeat, or I need something for a game show. And then it's several hours, a couple of hours later, it's I can drop you off a CD because I'm very technically not inclined. And then he'll bring me a CD with a bunch of cool music on it. So make sure you're following Curt on Spotify. Don't follow him on Twitter because he tweets out a bunch of nasty shit. So I would instead follow him on Spotify.
You know what? My tattoo artist and some other friends have access to my Twitter, so I don't even hardly use it. I just retweet some cool shit here and there. But they're the ones that keep on fucking tweeting all this weird shit. So I don't have any control over my. I don't have any control over my Twitter, really. It's not
I'm
me.
sorry, Curt. I love you, but guy who responds to porn actresses on Twitter is not the best look.
I'm friends with those particular people. I know them. So, yeah, I'm going to respond.
All right, man. So obviously, just because I've said it before, but it bears reminding that you do a lot for us, and I appreciate all the help that you've done.
Thanks.
As always, I
enjoy doing it.
I feel that you're part of 2 a.m. Burrito, and you also do your own thing. So I always try to support you wherever I can, and I hope that we have a chance to collaborate moving forward. But yeah, so lastly, before we wrap this up, and thank you everybody that'll listen to this eventually, for staying with us, and I'll try to cut out all the little miscues there. But yeah, Rob Zombie made a Monsters movie.
Yeah. That was the first movie I watched during the hurricane. I downloaded it.
God, as if one tragedy wasn't enough.
Yeah, and that's why I think it was. For some reason, at that moment, because I was sleeping on a gymnasium floor with 70 strangers, and high school lights were flickering. Power's kind of going in and out. My battery and my phone was charged, so I started watching that, and I could hear wind and all that kind of crap like that outside. For some reason, that kind of, I put my headphones on, I was watching it, and it kind of made me get lost, and I thought I liked it. I was like, hey, this ain't so bad. It's funny. It's stupid. Very campy. And then I watched it a second time when all that nonsense was over, and I'm like, this is the shittiest fucking movie I've ever seen in my life. If you ever just watched the trailer, which was awful enough, it is basically just like the trailer, but 2 more hours worth. And I've always said Rob Zombie films are just shitty, the worst. His movies never did anything for me. I watch them every year, but his movies never did anything for me. And this was no exception. I was kind of a fan of the original Monsters, and I know he was too, so I was surprised he took this route of not having it in Mockingbird Lane most of the whole film. They spent all that time and money designing the actual original house, and they only spent like the last 10 minutes of the movie with it, which I'm completely disappointed. And if you remember the original TV series, they always saw themselves normal, like amongst living, like they're normal. The living saw them as different.
Yeah, they were the ones that saw them. They were just like trying to hold a job.
Yeah, they're but for some reason in this movie, there's a scene where he opens up the door about going on his first day of job, and he sees the people, the townspeople, and without the Halloween makeup on, their normal selves, and they got scared, they were ugly to them. Oh my God, these people are ugly, and they got scared and shit like that. It was supposed to be a comical moment, and the people were riding their bikes, looking at the monster, literally in his full makeup, and they're smiling and waving at him, not even scared. And he reversed that, and I thought that was kind of odd. And most of the movie was spent in like Transylvania and all that kind of crap like that, but it was quite disappointing. I thought maybe he would do. He should have did it in black and white. I thought they were going to do it in black and white, but I guess the company that he worked for did not want to. What company was that? He did. It's a movie. It's all these movies where they always have the same director, and he makes these part 2s that go nowhere but online, and it's horrible shit. But I guess it was proper. that they did that. But honestly, I think this will be the last corporate movie he does. He's gonna have to do the whole raise money himself to do movies he wants. I don't think he's gonna do any more of that particular style of movie or that particular budget.
Yeah, no, I've always said that he feels like he has a filmmaking aesthetic as opposed to a style. And so I think usually what will happen is he picks the style that he wants the movie to be, and he thinks of the shots that he wants and kind of the look that he wants, and then he builds sort of the platform around it. And for this, I just thought all the green and all the colors was definitely a choice. Like, I think that movie, because I understand how like editing works, and you can throw a black and white filter on top of that, and probably it'll look kind of cool in black and white. Like, I wouldn't be surprised as if there's eventually like a black and white variant to that movie, because I think because that's what you need for black and white. You need certain types of colors that'll look cool in different shades of gray on there, you know. So I've always said he's got more, like I said, a filmmaking aesthetic than an actual style or sustenance to it. And I've always just watched his movies once. I can't imagine watching them twice for like even House of a Thousand Corpse or stuff like that, where it just like it falls under the like I'm gonna set up these gory scenes and then I'll come up, and then there's another clown in that, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I have it. I'm going to watch it, and hopefully I will get back to you after that. But watch Terrifier 2. I want to see what you think, because there's some really cool gore scenes in it. It felt like a Kickstarter movie, which it was, because you could be like, there's probably some scenes that were like they had too much money to make a certain scene, so they were like, all right, let's just go extra with it, you know, let's just like, cause some of the scenes you're like, all right, cool, that's enough, but it just kept going and kept going and kept going. So I was like, okay, they definitely were like, yeah, we have an extra $5,000. Let's what else can we do to this body? You know, kind of felt like that. And the fact that you don't know what the clown is kind of an interesting thing, like, because I think one of the differences with horror movies is whether or not you get the backstory of the reason for the evil, you know, like, even though most of them are sort of vague for some of them, you know, but who knows? And you know, they're bringing back the old man for the new Scream 10, right?
I didn't know that.
They're not Scream 10, Saw. They're doing Saw 10, and they're bringing back the original dude that's been dead since like Scream 3. So I don't know how they're going to do that, and they're skipping Saw 9.
Okay.
So they're going from Saw 8 to Saw Book of Jigsaw, and now they're going to go Saw 10. Even though Saw 3D was supposed to be the final chapter, as with horror movies, there's always another chapter.
If it's gonna make money, they're gonna do it. I know there's gonna be another Halloween. There's no such thing as a Halloween ends. So
no, Halloween doesn't end. Halloween is a franchise. They will continue to churn out some sort of Halloween variant every 2 to 3 years, and they will definitely use that scene that you mentioned and be like, "Oh, but this is Halloween in an alternate reality," and they'll do a whole new cast, and Jamie will be like a newscaster in some other universe.
I think the daughter is gonna be the new woman in to try to survive. I think she's gonna come back to Haddonfield for her mother's funeral, and then because they kind of always hinted to the idea of like it's gonna do a rebirth of evil is gonna jump from one person to another. It doesn't have to necessarily be Michael Myers itself. So I think they're gonna just kind of do it that way.
Nice. Well, Curt, we've talked horror. I appreciate that you came on and that we were able to do a little something for Halloween.
Yeah, sure. That's fun. Thanks.
For the 2 a.m. Burrito family. Stick around for a couple of seconds. I'll talk to you after this ends. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody that supports 2 a.m. Burrito, whether that's Fireside Chats, whether that's Mi Gente Show, whether that is through our films, through everything else that we do, specifically Curt as well. And we will see you guys live tomorrow at 8 p.m. for our official Halloween show over on the Mi Gente Show channel. Make sure you guys are watching, listening, subscribing, rating, all that good stuff. Happy Halloween, everybody. Peace out.